Are you passionate about shaping India's future? Keen to find solutions for India's most pressing challenges? Look no further than Takstashila's postgraduate program in public policy. This 48-weekend program will equip you with the knowledge, skills, and network needed to pivot to a meaningful career in public policy. Apply in the link below by June 1st. The program begins June 20th. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of All Things Policy. I'm Suman, your host for today. And today, I have a very interesting discussion lined up. It's a new idea in the governance space that could change a lot of things for us. To join me in this discussion is my colleague Bharath. He leads all things AI and tech governance, or works on all things AI and tech governance within Takshashila. Hi, Bharath. Welcome.
Thanks, Suman. Happy to be discussing what we have here.
Yeah. So to begin, for our listeners, when we analyze public policy, one important trade-off we often discuss is the trade-off between efficiency and reach or effectiveness. Right? Every government action or every government intervention, we want it to be effective in the sense that it should do what it is supposed to do, as well as it should be efficient. It should do what it's supposed to do within as little cost as possible. Right? But again, a common criticism of government programs is leakage, which means that benefits don't always reach intended recipients. Resources are often wasted. There is corruption. There is pilferage, all of this. Okay, think of public distribution system, our ration shops, or any of these government interventions that we see. And you're always looking at a system that is filled with inefficiencies, a lot of wastage, and all of that. So over the years, many reforms have been tried to make service delivery more efficient. And this is where digital public infrastructure comes in. In the last 15 years, the JAM trinity, the Jan Dhan accounts, the Aadhaar, and mobile, have become deeply embedded in government programs. This is believed to have brought significant gains in plugging leakages and increasing efficiency. But again, that is just one part of the story. These systems have also raised concerns around exclusion, privacy issues, and in some ways, they are actually defeating. There is some research to show that they could be working counterproductive or counterintuitively to the purpose of welfare. Now, a very new idea is emerging. Just as in all our workspaces, the idea of AI, the idea of agents in AI, and all of this. So the new idea of using an AI agent, a trusted digital assistant, to help people navigate different government services. What can we make of this, and what are all the possible ramifications? To discuss all this, Bharath will start with what is like Agentic AI, how can we envision this for the government?
Thanks for setting the context, Suman. So basically, Agentic AI is our AI applications that can do things on your behalf. So you can think of maybe making changes to writing code for you. You can make changes to the files on your computer. You can book appointments for things that you might want to attend, or order something for you, right? So you can book a flight ticket. You can make appointments with someone, and imagine that say you have a train booking or a Tatkal booking that has to be done, and it's really something that's hard for a human to do, right? You have to go at a certain time to be really
the line.
And these are things that maybe agents are much better suited for. So that's basically what agents can do. It can do things on your behalf, and you give it instructions and it can execute them. Now, the agentic AI on top of the DPI rails So you can imagine it, all of the additional things that it can do on top of the identity or payments or these other infrastructure that already exists. So the idea is that every citizen has a personal AI agent that's running either on their device or on a government cloud. And it basically sits on top of your Aadhaar or your DigiLocker and UPI and all of these things. And it converts your intention into workflows which it can execute. So you interact with it over with natural language. You give it some kind of a speech instruction, and it converts that into actions for you. So it can go apply for a government subsidy. It can register for some event, or it can book tickets for you, or it can execute and pay for it using UPI and all of these things. Right. So that's basically the idea. And the idea is that every citizen or every anyone who is part of this India stack should be able to do all of these things using this agentic framework. Now, this was released as part of a white paper alongside the India AI Summit, which happened a couple of months back. And it's co-authored with by MIT Media Lab's Ramesh Raskar and others founding CTOs Shrikant Nadamuni. And a bunch of others from IIC, IIT, and the broader DPI ecosystem as well. So, and the idea here is that when you listen to all the talk around the AI summit, it was DPI and AI is going to be enable a lot of different kinds of opportunities, and this was pitched as something that's a UPI kind of moment for India that India can do with AI, right? So population scale, public infrastructure, all of these things. So that's basically the idea behind it. Now, maybe we can get into some of the details about how it will be implemented, what are some of the challenges, and all of these things.
Yeah, on the surface, it just sounds very, very interesting, or at least a promising way to look at service delivery, right? We are in a country where probably digital literacy is not high, awareness is not high, and you know we are even actually grappling with basic literacy around finance, maybe around awareness around schemes that exist, all of this. So if you have Dhoot is the agentic AI that is being talked about. If you have Dhoot I think comes from the meaning like messenger. So this agent is your messenger, is doing your work for you, right? So if Dhoot is going to be doing work for you, which means, or is going to be doing work or helping with citizen service delivery, it means that it itself understands certain things and can do this at the best possible way. And it helps to navigate maybe bureaucracy, it helps to navigate barriers that come about to individuals. Now, is that a fair understanding of what this is meant to do? Like to bypass bureaucracy, to bypass other barriers that come to a normal citizen's life.
So you have a lot of friction in everyday interactions with the state, right? So you have friction because of say the complexity of the procedure involved. You might have friction because there are intermediaries who try to extract a rent because of this procedural complexity. So, and in a way, we've seen that Aadhaar or UPI resolved some of this friction. So UPI may be enabled payments to happen much more easily and disintermediated the bank tellers or these
mules.
Yeah, or the IMPS fees that you had to pay for each transaction and all of these things, right? And similarly, here the idea is that maybe your middlemen or your brokers or fixers of for all of these government schemes or government services could be moved out of the picture, and you directly have an agent that negotiates on your behalf and does all of these things for you, right? And now the challenge, there's also additional things that it makes it helps you navigate. So for a lot of people, maybe language is a barrier to be able to understand these processes or to be able to apply for them. And but they might be
finding the right forms, filling the right forms, all of those things are probably taken care of in this.
And even for someone who is conversant in English or who can navigate all of these things, it's just very painful, as all of us would have experienced at some point of time when you have to interact with some of these needs. So this is something that can navigate that complexity in a systematic way. It has access to all of these things, whether it's your identity or your health credentials or your payment details, all of these things, and it's able to fill out the right forms in a way that works for you, and picks the right kind of scheme that is suited for your use case, and all of these things, right? So that is the ideal promise of what it can should be able to do. But will it deliver on that is something that's a very there are a lot of complexities involved in doing something like this. So when you think of the things that can go wrong, it's first of all, large language models are not perfect. They're probabilistic. They are when you have to do something like this, you're providing instructions by voice. And now that voice is translated and is converted into text, and some meaning is derived from that text, and the agent is acting on this meaning and performing an action on your behalf, right? So now there are a lot of places that things can go wrong. So when the voice is converted to text, there are so many dialects, so many languages, so many variations in how people speak. How accurate is that conversion? And when it derives meaning out of it and performs an action, if that's a wrong kind of action, who will be held liable is again a big question, right? So where does liability lie when you have these kind of different vendors coming in to build this thing, and does the liability lie with the user who's using it and maybe give a wrong kind or a inaccurate kind of an instruction, or does it lie with the creator of this agentic infrastructure, or does it lie with the vendor who provided the speech to text kind of a part of that thing which mistranslated it? Or so it's pretty complex, and that's not just, there are a lot of other risks involved as well. So
yeah. So I was just thinking, like, for us, for people who are fairly well versed with the digital system, because we make payments regularly or whatever else, itself feels daunting. Okay? The entire process of trusting an agent to do right or to do what is best for you. You don't know whether the agent knows what's best for you. How do you know if the agent is not peddling something that it could peddle or whatever? Like, I think we read somewhere that flight tickets that an agent was asked to book, if the LLM or the model itself can prompt to give something that is not best suited for you. Okay, that is from a commercial or from a consumer point of view we're talking. When we're talking of making a claim on the state, right? When we're talking about somebody claiming a benefit, subsidy, or anything of that sort, if the onus of this entire thing falls on the individual itself to give the right direction, to give the right, all of this right, then it is very onerous, because the people who actually make a claim on the state may not really have this kind of thing. And something goes wrong, again, the time that they will spend on setting this right will again be again, we are in a time poverty kind of a situation, where again they will have to go spend a few hours, a few days to get this fixed, and all of that, whatever we have seen with Aadhaar will come back again. Then you will have again human intermediaries that will come probably to get this fixed. So then what is the question? What is the problem we are solving? That is a question that is on my mind always. But I'm sure I haven't read too much about the technical details of it as to how it will. Again, of course, as we go along, I'm sure the details will come on that. But thing is still about, where does the responsibility lie, right? Who does the responsibility lie with? So that is a question. But the benefits clearly, while they're there, I don't know if the cost benefit actually works in that sense of what are the other ways to look at this?
So I think it's still a very nascent technology, and it is just going to keep getting better. We have seen that in a lot of agentic kind of use cases, what was not possible just a few months back is very remarkable. What you're able to do with it, right? So it is going to keep improving, and in my opinion, largely both Aadhaar and UPI, in spite of all the criticisms about exclusion or some of the privacy concerns and all of these things. They have enabled a lot of positive benefits for a lot of people, right? So they've simplified identity to a large extent, but maybe the regulatory framework around it could be designed better. Same with UPI. You have concerns about how UPI works for the most part, that you're able to do these transactions. It's simplified. It's brought in digital transactions into almost to the point that we don't carry cash at all. And there could have been better ways in how the governance could have been designed. So maybe there is no way to monetize UPI, and there's
who pays for it? Right now, it's all moving because government is subsidizing.
Yeah, you have largely two big players who have designed these apps, and NPCI is the one entity that is again has a monopoly on this infrastructure. So all of these concerns are there with UPI, but largely both of them, UPI and Aadhaar, have delivered a lot of benefits to everyone. And in this case, like you were saying, now you're delegating autonomy to act on your behalf to this agent, which is a mediator in some sense. And now, who builds this mediator? Whose interest is it serving? Is it really my interest as a user, or is it someone who has built it, or is it
the government's interest,
or is it the government's interest?
The government can have various interests when compared to individuals. The government interest will be prevention of fraud, will be getting people on board, will be probably tracking where you're spending, what you're spending, all of that. But as an individual, my interests will be different, right? So the agent will work on behalf of whom is the question, right? Is it my agent or is it the government's agent?
Yeah, because you can easily think of a case where a farmer is applying for a subsidy, but maybe has some income to spend for discretionary expenditure. Now, if an agent is saying that you are not eligible for this subsidy because you have these kind of expenses, and decides to rule them out of this thing, it's a really, I don't know where that line can be drawn, right? So whose interest is it serving is actually a pretty important question to be answered here. And is who builds this, right? Is it going to be, again, only the government that's building it, or is it going to be like the rails are there, but anyone can build different agents that can interoperate on top of this? What kind of a framework that will be is something that we'll need to see. But given the opportunities that are there, I think there are ways, as the technology gets better, there are ways in which you can build it, address some of these concerns and realize some of the potential that it has to offer while minimizing the risks. So, yeah, that pathway should be there, but how do we get there is something that we need to think about.
Yeah, you were talking about guardrails, and you were talking about the regulatory architecture. If we're talking about guardrails, regulatory architecture is one part of it, and it's very, very important. Okay, we've seen some regulation around privacy and all of that has come in, as in we have the laws, but again, the law itself gives a lot of concession to the government. There is a lot that can be improved with the privacy law itself. So given that, the other danger that really looms very, very, very high in my ranking is, can we then profile people, using this kind of technology? If a person is using an agent to do this, and this, so that you put them here, some kind of surveillance kind of a thing, architecture that this actually brings. Are these fears, do you think these fears are, unnecessary, or do you think there is genuine concern about these things?
Again, it comes down to who's building it and what are they trying to optimize for. So there is always going to be this question of scope creep. So you start with a limited scope, then you see that cybersecurity concerns are on the rise. So you say that this needs to be a Sanchar Sathi kind of a thing that's built into your agent, which will also monitor a bunch of other things, or it'll see if you're really eligible for this this kind of a scheme, or if you go visit a restaurant then and splurge on something, maybe you're not eligible. I don't know. So it's it's there are concerns for whose interests it serves. There are concerns about, for a state to maybe have more visibility. But again, it all comes down to who is building it and what it is being used for, right? And how it is being built. So there are possible ways in which it can be developed by the private sector. And maybe I trust this particular company to serve my interests, and I go with an agent that they have built, and that agent is then able to interoperate with the identity or payment or all of these other layers. And if there are multiple such agents, maybe I could choose the one that best serves my interests based on my understanding or based on
Yeah, but all of this, the market serving this need works for something that can be monetized, right? In a situation like service delivery, the government is looking to make service delivery more efficient and using AI or agentic AI for this. So, if there is no money to be made here, the market is not going to step in, which means it has, or is there another way to look at this? Is there a way to see that, markets step in here and compete against each other for this kind of agentic thing, and then people actually, but again, the profile of people who will claim from the state, would they be able to make a decision? I'm not trying to be paternalistic or anything of that sort, but what is their level of knowledge? Is there an, again, we'll get into issues of information asymmetry and all of that, right? So should the government be the only entity that will be running this agentic AI architecture for service delivery is a question that, is on my mind.
Um, so if you compare it with UPI, so the infrastructure is managed by NPCI, and it is subsidized by the government to run it, to staff the governing body and all of these things, right? But now when you think of agentic AI, it is far more compute intensive to be able to do these kinds of things. You might think of small language models that can run on edge devices and all of that. That's what the paper on Dhoot also talks about, that these will be smaller, lightweight models that will run on edge devices. Edge devices would be, say, your smartphone, and it might have a replica on a government cloud for doing maybe more intensive processing. But then who pays for it? Who builds these things? How is it maintained? All of these are again questions, right? So and it's again, if it's a smartphone user who has access to this, would that benefit a certain section of society that can have access to this and exclude some others who can't access it, right? So maybe those who can are able to get faster access or easier access to some of the government services, while those who can't have to go through the conventional route, which basically I can have my agent book an IRCTC ticket, but those who don't have this agent would have to go stand in line at the railway station and wait their turn, right? So I guess it leads to those kind of challenges, but then it's also like you're stuck in some kind of a situation where you have low state capacity which can't address it. So if you have a way to come out of this, maybe that is one pathway for at least to start off with those who can access it, kind of get access to it, and maybe we figure out how you can get everyone else on board as well, right? So that's I guess the challenge that
And I think for me the big picture challenge also, of course, is how do we look at our governments itself? Because if this kind of techno optimism or techno paternalism comes into the picture, then the relationship between citizen and the state itself changes, right? Because now at this point you have somebody in the local government that a person can go to and say that, okay, this is not working, can you do something for me about this? And if you transfer this entire thing onto, say, an agent, and which that means that your link with the local government is also broken, and so it becomes, who do you make a claim on? If I can't go to my local government, then the local government becomes redundant in the entire process. right? So redressal of problems and actually, making this kind of claim also brings that kind of friction, something that we need to think about maybe while looking at to what extent you want to go into this. I mean, would you agree? I mean, is that something that people think about when we talk about technology in some state? Should we think about it?
It's I'm I'm tempted to put on this thing that even in the current situation, how often does the local government actually,
Actually help.
how effectively are you able to hold them accountable and
Yeah,
liable for things
that's
breaking?
something we have seen with Aadhaar also, right? With Aadhaar and the entire payment system that you see, the people who have access and who know how to work around this get by. The ones who really need, I mean, this entire thing was built on this thing that it will save time.
Mhm.
But what you actually now see are people standing in lines to get their Aadhaar name corrected, something else corrected, which means they are losing half a day of their thing. And all of that is going on. There is a poverty of that kind of time that exists amongst people. So either I think both ways you are going to, there is some of this that is going to creep in. How do you minimize this is a question that, that is still there with us. And I think for me, it is the idea that, okay, we can, if by doing agentic AI, we don't put the onus of education or the onus of awareness onto people, right? We are trying to say that we are solving for even your literacy problems. You don't have to know the language, you don't have to learn anything. We are just going to give you all of this. But why should we do that?
Right.
It's important for people to know what they're getting to. I think the agentic AI should not dumb you down to that extent that you don't make an effort to learn anything or you remove the need to learn.
So it's not clear how it's going to be implemented, but what I am thinking is that what is being proposed is something like a prototype, like what Beam was for UPI, right? So you had a kind of a showcase of what is possible, and then you had others also building out parallel kinds of thing. I'm thinking maybe something like that is what's going to happen here, that you'll have different kinds of and different agents. So it might be that you have different ways in which you can address it, and if you're not able to access it, you can still go to the local government and raise this thing, right? So it need not be that just because this exists, every other interface has been cut off. So that can exist in parallel, and you can have grievance redressal and all of these things in addition to this being one mode of engagement with the government. So that's one possibility. But back to the other question that you mentioned, which is how does it change
Citizens, the interface or the relationship with
yeah.
the state.
So I guess it's something that's it's hard to anticipate. I guess some of these will evolve as you build it out and you get a better understanding and you're able to frame the rules for participation as you go.
Yeah, I think, before government intervention, I think there is a case for us to study what agentic AI does in the markets, right? What does it do for each of us, and what are the problems that it is actually coming up with? Is the agent helping me book a ticket that is best for my interest, that is the cheapest, works for my time, all of that, or is it pushing its own thing? That is one thing that, there are, I think, one or two papers that we've seen on that kind of thing. Okay, which LLM is actually prioritizing what? All of those things, I think the learnings from that, would be very, very important to see, for us to actually transfer and understand what happens in the service delivery space itself. So to me, I think we have to take very, very cautious steps towards this if we ever get into, I don't think there is running away from the AI, agentic AI bit. I don't know about agentic AI, but there's definitely no running away from AI in all walks of life. So, but I think it's good to go slow rather than go head on and, dismantle a system that exists and, cause additional chaos within the system, because it impacts the most vulnerable in society. So we need to be very careful when we make these steps. That's my takeaway, at least I would think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more at stake, like you're saying. It's not just going and waiting for a correction into your credentials or something like that. It can actually perform actions on your behalf, and that could have consequences for you, right? So it could exclude you from certain things, or it could spend money, and where you might not have this kind of awareness of what exactly you're getting into. So all of these are risks, but I'm still a little optimistic about what is possible. And I guess there are maybe better ways to build it while also not dismantling some of the existing things, so that what's working should not be done away with, but maybe have this as a parallel track in which you can do some of those,
Sure. If you have any other closing thoughts, else we can.
No, just that I'm quite optimistic about how AI has had an impact on our life, all things considered. So there are disruptions. There are disruptions to maybe how the labor market functions. There are disruptions to how the economy might work, and all of those things. And there might be other concerns about externalities to the environment and all of that. But all things considered, I think some of these things will improve. But from where we are, you can think of all of the things that you can do now that you couldn't do maybe this thing. And this is one way to get ahead of some of the state capacity constraints that we keep talking about, right? So you say that the Indian state is absent in place that it should be, and maybe this is one way in which you can bridge that capacity gap.
Sure. Thanks, Bharath. At least my thoughts on this is just that we have to be cautiously optimistic. And also the fact that the efficiency effectiveness debate will continue. Okay, with all these interventions, we are always looking at what is the cost. I mean, how much are we saving? What is the effectiveness? Are we really getting what we want? I think that should continue in all ways. And we should be watching out for this space in greater detail. And as we see more developments, I will pick your brains more on this, maybe on another episode when we see more developments of this. But yeah, if the listeners have any comments to add to this, or if you have a different experience or different view on this, do write to us. We'll be happy to look at that and probably answer in another episode. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Bharath, for joining on this episode. And we'll see everybody, or we'll come back soon for another episode.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.